Now,
I think Steve is on. Steve, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. Sorry, I'm late.
Steve Rowling, welcome, and Steve is one of the members of the Finance and Audit Committee. And
That was me, sorry. You too.
okay, all right, let's call the public hearing to order. And it's been properly advertised, I suppose.
We have a, yes, we had a notarized notice of public hearing in the Kansas Star, which is our public, our newspaper of highest circulation as required by statute. We also publicized this on the library's website and social media, and was available there as well.
Okay, thank you. Just a word of explanation. This business of the levy is a kind of a changing practice during the time that we make the decision about it. We have to start out. We have to make that decision by this date, and then we also have to approve a budget soon after this. And yet we will not have accurate estimates of what our income will be from the 3 counties that we serve until much later on. And of course, we don't have the approval. We have to ultimately have the approval of the Attorney General of the state to levy amount. And we won't get that until late in the year. But we have to have, by law, an estimated levy. And you'll note it. The proposed tax rate shall be set to produce substantially the same revenue as required by the budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021. Substantially is the right word there, because I would use the word estimated, and I think that's what this is really. It's estimated based on what we've been told by the counties at this point. But we've also, what we decided to do this year, and we've done this, not the first time we've done this, but we'll continue at the new rate that was voted. We've just selected the voted rate, which is 40 cents per $100 of valuation, or 0.4000 multiplied by 100 is the amount that people would pay based on the value of their house and based on the appraisals established by the county. We don't have final information from all the counties, so the 40 cents is an estimated rate. It's the best estimate we can do right now, and the chances are almost overwhelming, I think, that the final rate will be less than that. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I would be, our current rate, our current certified rate is 0.3694.
Yeah.
And I would expect it to be somewhere in that neighborhood once all the data comes in.
And it will be that way because we will not know the actual amount that will be produced by the appraisals that the counties have done until later on. And we won't have the certification of the Attorney General as to our rate, as to the fact that we meet state law requirements on that until later in the year. This is not a new procedure. This is what's been done every year. I've been on the board for over 15 years, and every year we do the same thing. And so that's where we stand with the levy. But so the hearing is on the 40 cent rate, and any comments you make should be on that rate. But understanding that the final rate will be almost undoubtedly less than that. We don't know how much less because we don't have the information yet from the counties that would allow us to make a better, finer prediction. So that's why we use this rate. Okay, well, I'll open the hearing. Any comments from you, Steve?
No, I think you laid that out very well, John, and nothing for me, Teresa. I checked in with you yesterday. We had no written comments from anybody. I received no other comments.
Okay. Any comments by, at this point, by members of the board who are here as members of the at least most of them are here as members of the Finance Committee, and then we have Joyce Virgo, who is also a board member who is present, and Rita Weiss is here also as a board member who is present. So any comments by board members? Okay, hearing none, we'll open the public hearing to the public at large and see if there are comments by members of the public either that are here, because I gather we haven't received any comments, didn't plan to have any online. Okay, any other comments about the levy? Yes.
Sorry, what? I'm Jane Shovel, live in Platte County. And I came because I was on one of these neighborhood newsletter things, and people are stressed out about our assessments. And then, of course, the taxes, and so I'm here just to find out, is there anything to reduce the library tax levy? Because it's one of our top levies. So that's.
Well, your top levy, I think, is the schools.
Yes.
Yeah, and the second is probably the county itself.
No, our county's great.
What is your county's rate?
I can't tell you, but it did go up.
6 cents.
How much?
6 cents per hundred.
So what other sources of revenue does the county have? They have sales tax, don't they?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes, they have sales tax.
They have
Okay,
liquor license tax. They have.
Yes.
yeah, most counties have a tax on electronics, television, and the delivery of electronics to your home. They make a tax on that.
I think so.
Well, maybe it's just the cities that do that. Well, in any event, so your comment is that it would be good if we could reduce that 40-cent amount.
Right.
I think your wish will be achieved, because it's very unlikely to be a 40-cent rate at the time we do it, for the reasons I mentioned before, which is that we will have better information, and we'll, the budget is the budget, and we will then the amount that we need to do the budget is the amount that we'll finally settle on. But we're required by law to have an estimated tax levy hearing at this point. So that's what this is. The estimated tax levy is 40 cents per hundred.
There's a lot of people stressed at this time.
Sure, we understand
Trying to
that.
make ends meet.
Yeah. Other comments?
Yes, my name is Janet Starr.
Yes.
Do you mind if I stand here?
Not at all.
Okay. I have several questions, basically. I did take the time last night to go through your 62 pages anyway, or 61 anyway. And so I did look at the numerous charts and things, and you guys did a fabulous job. I see that you've really worked hard to put this budget together, and I commend you on that. Some of the questions that I found, just as a homemaker, I'm not an accountant, I'm just a taxpayer. But one of the things that I found when I was comparing your budget from last year to this year, I noticed that at the top, and I do see that you guys said that you start your budget each year with a $23-something thousand or something, or $1 million, I guess it is. Anyway, my main question that I was wondering is, I know that our property values have been assessed, and I don't know if every 10 years, so Platte County residents' property values have been assessed. I know ours are going up by 12% with our appraisal. Now, I'm not saying our taxes are going up by 12%. I'm saying our property value has been appraised and it's gone up by 12%.
I think the law actually requires that the counties reassess every 2 years.
Oh, well,
Or is that?
it's
that's
10,
correct.
I think.
No, it's actually
No, it's
correct.
every 2
By law,
years.
it's supposed to be every 2 years.
Okay, so anyway, thank you. So it has just been assessed this year, and I know it's gone up. So because in light of that, I was wondering, my question is, how does the Hancock amendment kick in? So let's say if you guys say 40% here, but let's say, and Clay as well as Jackson counties, did theirs already get reassessed as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, how do you keep from getting a huge windfall when this happens? Does the Hancock Amendment bring that way down? Can you explain
Hancock
that?
Amendment will be assessed, will be applied
Okay,
at a certain time, and we will roll back the levy in accordance with the Hancock Amendment.
so let's say you get in a huge windfall. So when does that happen? Do
Well,
they
there are
roll that
different-
back?
There are different elements to the windfall.
Okay.
Steve, you might want to explain that.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the larger calculation. I think Mr. Laney did a really nice job of sort of explaining the calendar and when we have to do. what we
Yes,
have to
I
do.
was listening to every word.
And so when we get all of the county final assessed valuation, we still aren't finally assessed because people can still go to their board of equalization and protest their amounts and get it
Yes,
equalized.
yes.
But once we get what is considered substantially accurate and the counties certify that, then we run it through a formula spreadsheet, and it's about a 5-page long spreadsheet that we have to put all of our data in. And at that point, it calculates the assessed valuation, the new construction, all the different variables. And if we have a situation where we have large growth due to inflation or due to assessed valuations, then we are obligated to have no more than 5%. 5% is the ceiling, or what's the other, or the inflation rate, whichever one is less. So if, for example, the inflation rate was 2%, say we have a 17% windfall.
Okay,
Okay.
yes.
Then, and let's just, for sake of argument, say that the inflation rate is going to be 2%, or there's the 5% ceiling. We could not generate more than 2% more revenue.
Okay,
Even if the formula initially said we could have 17%, we can only get 2%. Is all.
Okay, so even with all these people being reassessed, you're saying that you're not going to get like a ton of money from that. The Hancock Amendment will kick in, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is what's happened. I mean, I've been, let's start, I mean, we've talked many times, I've been around forever.
Right, right.
And so it's certainly one of the things that I've seen in my time is, we've had situations where there've been inflation and situation, and we have had to roll back, and that does happen. That hasn't happened recently, or as much recently, because inflation's been relatively flat. And a lot of counties haven't been doing their assessments the way that they're supposed to. And so we've been at a slower rate. And so Hancock hasn't kicked in, but it kicked in a couple of years ago, I think, on us. So.
Well, yes, I saw that here. I saw your trend here on this chart.
Yeah.
And I did see that in 2019, you did come down. And I did see that last year you went up. So I was hoping that this year would be coming down, because this was the question that I had when I was starting to say a minute ago, is I noticed from July 2020 to June 2021, which is where we're at, you started your budget at 91, we'll just say 91 round off million, and then you ended at 50 million. And then here, the same one starts in July at 73. So did you add that 23 on there automatically? Because in other words, if you ended at 50, you would think that budget would start at 50 million.
Yeah, the sheet you're looking at is actually a total, it's like a total balance sheet, which includes all of our accounts.
Yeah.
Which also includes one-time money, like the money that we're using to pay for the capital program. And so it does, so if you're looking at that far left column,
Yes.
it's not going to match it. What tends to match up year over year is the far left column, which is the operating fund budget.
Okay.
And that's because we're spending more than we're taking in, because we're spending the one-time money to build the buildings.
Okay. So now I have another question, because my husband used to work for the government and he worked in the budget department, and I wish he was here because he knows his stuff. Like I said, I'm a homemaker, I'm just asking questions.
You're doing fine.
So basically, I noticed at the bottom here, we have 50 million at the end of June here, and then proposed for For this year, it's gonna be 40 million. Now, that seems like a lot of excess money in the budget to me, to have 50 million, because here you're taking in property taxes of almost 60, and yet you end up with 50. To me, when my husband worked in the military, they had pretty much at the end of the year, their budget had to balance out. I mean, they had to bring, do you know what I mean? They didn't have excess. That, because that shows to me that you have extra money is what that shows me.
Well, we have to carry some extra money.
I understand. I'm not saying you have to have a zero balance. You're not like the military, but I'm just saying, if you
Well,
have
we don't
50
see, we
million.
don't get our taxes. The taxes are 95% of our
Right, now,
income, and the taxes aren't delivered to us until the end of the year. So we don't know what those will be. We have to carry all the expenses of the library between now and time, between the first, when we adopt the budget.
I understand that. So what I'm saying is, don't you get all your taxes when they get paid in December? Don't you get them all in January? And then that covers for the year? No, when do you get your taxes then?
Well,
Yes, we're getting new tax revenue starting in December, but our fiscal year starts on July the 1st.
I
So
see.
we need some capital to cover the expenditure between July and December.
It's a carryover?
That's about, that you are correct. That's about $23 million. Plus, we also had a commitment to finish the capital project.
Correct.
It's left over about over $10 million. So 23 plus 10, that's about $33 million.
Okay.
And there's other commitments we have under other funds too.
Well, I do see, I mean, I am impressed that it looks like this next year that's closer. It's down 40 million,
Yes.
whereas this you had more excess here.
Well, the one you have on your right hand, that's the projection.
Yes.
So at this point, this is the budget and that's all projection.
Correct.
The actual amount
Will be different.
will be different. Probably.
Yes, yes. Okay, let me see what other questions I wrote down. Where a couple more.
And the gap, some of that gap that you're talking about is the fact that we really have a considerable heavy capital program this year. A lot of money. You would see more money last year and less money this year, in part because, you know, we finished our Coleman Road branch. In fact, in terms of the capital program, we have, I think it's 30 of 35 projects finished or under contract. So-
Yeah, no, I did see that. I thought that was very good. Let's see.
What is our current debt for the capital program since?
Yeah, that's a good question. What is our current debt? I was the one.
Well,
who
we
did that.
started with $80 million. We only made 2 years of repayments. So we still have 774, yeah,
How much more?
about $74 million.
74 million still
Yes.
in debt?
Yes,
We haven't paid it back yet.
we only started 2 years ago for repayment.
So if we have extra money, can we not put that toward the debt?
There's a repayment penalty up till 2026. We could let
Yeah.
someone make a big payment on after.
We make a
that.
balloon payment.
Yeah,
when we
balloon
can-
payment on
when we can
2026,
roll it.
because there's a fine if we go.
Oh, I see.
we did the debt route because we wanted to get the projects that the people voted for finished as quickly as possible
Okay.
so that they could use them.
Right,
Or otherwise, we'd gone pay as you go. It would
Yeah,
take
no.
21 years. to
No, I
do it, and
understand.
that, you know, it's.
no, I understand.
And so that's what we did, was to borrow the money. And by the way, we invested the borrowed money. And so far, we've earned about $3.6 million on the investments of the borrowed money, which is allowed by federal law. Although we monitor that carefully to make sure we're doing it correctly, but it allows us to invest a certain amount of that money. And so we've earned about $3.6 million, I believe.
I think in total between the Texas banking.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so on page 23, I was wondering how, can you explain that little graph there where it said the 1.7 whatever total? Explain what that is. You've got the budget, the estimate, property tax, et cetera.
What page are you on?
Oh, it's page 23. Okay, so that is showing our sources and our estimates for our property tax levy, our grants and contributions, investment income, fines and fees, and other miscellaneous income. add it all together, it comes up, the 1.7 that you're referring to.
Yeah,
Is that it's showing that there's a projected 1.7% increase in total revenue sources in 2020, in fiscal year 2021-22.
okay, so you are, does that project, that's my question, thank you for pointing that out. So that is actual projection of an increase, but that is without knowing already what I already mentioned, right? Or you, because you don't know the assessment of all these people's property, right?
Right.
You already have a 1.7.
We are guessing 1.7%. We are also guessing, well, what we're guessing is a 1.6% increase in property tax revenues.
Right,
But we're also guessing a decrease in grants and contributions, a decrease in increase in investment income, an increase in fines and fees. So yeah, all of that combined comes up to a 1.7% increase. In terms of the previous question about the Hancock amendment,
Right.
you can see our estimate is 1.6. And so again, if inflation were 2%,
okay,
and as we were saying, we cannot get a windfall more than 5% by constitution. So we're projecting less than what our average trend has been in terms of revenue.
okay. So what I'm saying is this projection, is that supposedly already including the increase or no? It's not, because you haven't heard back from your assessors, right?
It's
Or from the state?
We are guessing that there is going to be an increase due in large part to new construction costs and certificates of values that have been filed. So-
Okay. So I did read that next paragraph, and that's where I did see that it looked like you had the 40 cents, and then like you already mentioned about the Hancock.
Right.
So basically, okay, well, that helps me to understand that. That's good.
Okay.
And then I noticed, so you basically have to, I mean, you guys have quite a job, because you have to get the property tax rate from each of the counties, right?
Yeah,
And so it actually be different, is that correct?
the rate, no.
The rate, no, well, no, the 40 cent I know is the same, but I'm talking about the different counties are assessed by different rates.
Well, they're assessed by different people using different methods. And,
Yeah.
and different processes, and so, yeah, it is a challenge dealing with all three different assessments.
So it's gonna be, okay.
But the one thing I would advise you, I know you maybe already know about all this, but there is a process by which you can contest your property tax rate. And
Well, not property tax rate, your
No.
assessed valuation.
I'm sorry, the assessed
Yeah.
valuation, and that is the Board of, what is it?
Equalization.
Yeah.
Board of Equalization.
I'm
You
familiar with
know
them.
about it, okay,
Yeah.
so you probably have a request into them on property.
Well, no, not yet.
Oh, okay, well, the deadline is, I think the deadline's coming up. It's-
Well, it depends on the county. I mean, it's.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, that, you are right, Ms. Stark. I mean, the challenge working with the different counties and how the different counties approach this and different offices, and
Right,
yeah, it's a challenge.
It is.
2 years ago, Jackson County, and this was in a lot of the newspapers, Jackson County did a massive reassessment, and it ended up that, I can't remember how many parcels were under consideration. They had 20 or 30,000 accounts under reassessment, and that ended up, the BZA ended up moving well into calendar year 2020, dealing with all of the appeals and everything. So
yeah, it said
it's
something about a
challenge.
tax dispute, something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, tax disputes and clawbacks that we dealt with in Jackson County.
They asked for money back. So
You know,
we had to-
didn't ask.
They did.
Didn't ask, took it back.
I'm
Okay.
not sure though, when it comes to the Board of Equalization now, if the assessor isn't within plus or minus a certain amount, 5%, the state can come in. So that, to me, I mean, I know my neighbors, they sold and they got more than what they were asking. It's just crazy right now, the housing
Yeah.
market
Yeah, it is crazy.
crazy at this moment. And so we're not gonna go to the board, ours went up, but we're like, the assessor said this is what properties are selling for in your neighborhood.
Well, but you can challenge that, that's the whole purpose. If
Yeah, but
you have
that's
to
what
do,
they're
you
selling
have to do a
for.
little homework, you have to look at what others are paying, you have to look at what are equivalents to your home and make a case. And if you make a decent, I could only speak for Jackson County. But if you make a decent case in the beginning, the hearing is not with the board, it's with the assessor itself. So they'll have somebody from the assessment office who will meet with you. And if you make a decent case, they will reduce it. That frequently happens in Jackson County, and I'm sure it happens in all three counties.
Yeah.
They will hear you, but you've got to make a case. You can't just go and say, I think my rate's too high, and you have to reduce it. They say, well, why? Give us some evidence. And if you give them some evidence, they're likely to reduce it.
I just have one last question, and this is on my last page, on page 34. I did see the general fund tax revenues and then the expenditures. So obviously last year with COVID, it looks like your expenditures were down from 2019. So you obviously got extra money there then, right? If you weren't spending as much?
Yeah, we had a positive revenues over expenses situation, or at least it appears as though we're having that
Okay,
through the fiscal year that we're about to end.
okay, okay.
And part of what we did with that is that we transferred, we did some transfer of funding from the operating fund. With that revenue over expenses situation, we moved some of that into the capital project fund, which allowed us to be in a position to have all of the resources that we needed for the capital plan. We also took some of that money and put it in the capital projects fund, because one of the things we discovered during the pandemic was that while our electronic infrastructure worked very well, in fact, worked better than we expected it to, we did discover that we needed some updates and upgrades to our server technology and things like that. And so we used some of that, so we allocated some of that extra money to make that one-time expense.
Right, and I saw that you
investment.
also spent extra money to the Kansas City Star for their electronics thing to go back to 1800 or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was we don't actually buy that directly from the Kansas City Star. I mean, that's what you said. I don't think that's what you meant.
Oh, well, I mean, I read something about that.
Yeah, it's from a third-party vendor that we get it from. But yeah, we had a contract, we had a multi-year contract to buy a perpetual license for the Kansas City Star so that everybody could have the historical record forever. And we had planned on, I think we planned on making 2 more years worth of small payments. But since we had the extra money, we just paid off the entire contract.
Okay.
Retired that.
Yeah, it's free to anybody who wants to log in. That's pretty cool.
So,
Oh,
It's hard
okay.
to find anywhere.
All right. Well, that's good. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Are there other comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the levy hearing to a close. That's all we need to do is just close the levy hearing officially, or
yeah, what
is
I'd
there
like
other
to do,
things?
what I'd like to do, and Quan, correct me if I get anything wrong, but as I recall, our obligation now is to have give the public the opportunity to comment on the levy. And we always invite people to comment on the budget as well at this point, since we have the public hearing.
Sure.
That part's extra, actually. So now that we've had the public hearing, the next thing that will happen is we'll get our final numbers from the county. And then once we get the final numbers from the county, we'll run everything through the spreadsheet. And then we will bring that final levy rate to the board. And we usually do final certification at the September board meeting, because it's usually the September board. Isn't it September?
Yes. If we won't have August meeting.
If we don't have an August meeting, we usually do it in September. And so then and that's when we've got all the information, and the board will put an official stamp on something. And again, my guess is the levy rate's probably going to be around 36.94, maybe even a little lower, because of the situation with the housing market as we brought up. So that's the next steps when it comes to the levy.
Okay. All right.
Did I get that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so then the hearing is now officially closed. All right. Thank you all for coming and making comments. We appreciate your comments and did your homework. Congratulate you for that. Now I will call to order the meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee. We're a little bit late. We were planning to start at 10:15. It's now 10:30, so we're starting the meeting. And we'll have a roll call if we may, please, Teresa.
Okay. Everyone here is here in the room. Steve Rowland, you're on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so, we have John Laney, Charlotte, over there, Steve Rowland, Ron Peace, Michelle Whitehall, is that?
Okay. All right, do we expect Michelle to?
No,
Okay.
Michelle is not expected.
All right, very good. All right, we have a quorum, and so we now need to approve the agenda as submitted. And you have the agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
So moved. Is there a second? Seconded. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, let's look at the minutes of May 25th, 2021. And we need to approve those. I'll give you a moment or two to take a look at those and make sure that they're accurate. And if you feel they are, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes of May 25th, 2021.
I move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 25th, 2021. Is there, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes of May 25th, 1 are approved. Now, we'll go into the 2021-22 budget. And we've already had one extensive review of this. We spent quite a lot of time. I think we went over a little bit. We were, what, 2.5 hours the last time reviewing this budget for the first time. We got it the very first at our last meeting, and had a chance to go over it very thoroughly. And in the process, we made some suggestions and requests of the administration about some changes in the budget that we thought would be appropriate. And so I'm just going to kind of run through this quickly to see if there are further comments or if there are comments related to the changes that we had asked be made the last time around. And I'll start with the budget message, which is page 1. And there were some changes in the first paragraph, and you'll make note of those. And there's still are a couple of little errors. They're just little tiny errors in the first paragraph, and those will be taken care of. There was a suggestion made on page 2 that maybe that Steve emphasized a bit more, and deservedly so, the contributions of our employees to the fact that we were able to get through the pandemic so well and continue to serve the people and do so in a safe way. So I think Steve Rowling made that comment, and I believe that has been incorporated in there. Steve, did you have a chance to notice that?
Yes, I did. And I think I'm very pleased with the revised language. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Any comments you have, Steve, about your letter?
No, I just want to make a comment just in general that the copy editors are still going through this. The version you're seeing has still not been fully copy edited. We discovered a long time ago that if we have one version where people are editing content and another version where people are editing the copy, the editing, lots of times those don't get married up at the end. So yeah. You may still see a split infinitive or a comma splice, but that will be corrected before the June.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, with strategic plan, I think I don't show that we made any suggestions for a change in any of that material that was in that one. I'm over on page 7 now, and I show some underlining here that I did myself, but I don't think there were any changes proposed in that area. And then looking on the next page, which is page 8, we have practices that apply only to the debt service fund. I think there was some conversation about early payout, and I think in fact I think you mentioned
I've got a
that.
question on
Yeah, go ahead.
On the debt payoff, is there any plan to have a separate account to collect balloon payment, or is this, how do you foresee addressing it? Is there any plan, or is it to be developed?
Details would be to be developed, but in terms of separate fund, yes, I mean, I would say that debt service
Yeah,
fund.
page 50,
Debt first.
page 50, you may see the 51, you can see all the details.
Okay. Debt
Yeah.
service fund?
Yeah, there is a fund that already
Okay, good.
exists, and we could easily, if we wanted to create a specific line for that purpose within that, we could do that.
Yeah, and our hope would be, I think everyone agrees that our hope would be to try to pay off that debt earlier than we have, because it's considerable and it runs until 2039. Is that correct?
Yes.
38.
38,
Yes.
2038, missed it by a year.
No,
And so
I agree. Staff agrees with that assessment.
Yeah,
We-
I
we
think-
would like to pay it off earlier if we can,
I think,
as long as we don't back ourselves into it. I mean, one of the things that I've explained to all of us, everyone at one time or another, is that we do want to make sure that we are putting away money to maintain the building. So we don't want a situation where we pay off quick, and then we've got a bunch of repairs that we need to make because we've deferred all the maintenance. We want to make sure that there's a balance.
yeah. All right, thank you. All right, the budget calendar on page 9, and that was what we discussed in the levy hearing, and that kind of goes through that when we get the information we get and how it relates to the budget adoption and so on. So that's an important part of it. I don't think we suggested any changes there. The library organizations and structure on page 10. I don't think we made any suggestions. Did we make changes? Any suggestions there? I don't recall any.
Not on 10. On 11, we did make, underneath the chart that's there, we did add the new reciprocal libraries and talked. If you'll notice, it says Henry County Library and Kansas City Public Library. Those were missing previously.
Yeah,
So we clarified that point.
yeah, those were just districts, new districts
New
with
districts,
which
yeah.
we have reciprocity. That is, they can use their library cards here and we can use our library cards there. I talked a little bit about the virtual branch. I think we had quite a little healthy conversation about that, the importance of the virtual branch. And
That was added as the text flow. That was added on page 12.
on page 12,
Yeah, so
okay,
that top paragraph in page 12
all right.
talks about the creation of the virtual branch and what it's done over the past couple of years.
Right.
Why it's been important.
And we think the virtual branch will grow quite a little bit. People during the pandemic, I think, had more of an opportunity to learn to use it than they had previously. And so I think we can expect to get more use on the virtual branch. And hence some of the expenditures that we made for IT and cybersecurity. I might also add that we discussed that fully at the last meeting, and that some of the increases in the budget inside of our IT are going to cybersecurity. Okay.
John, could I ask a question, please? This is Steve.
Yes, please.
Steve, don't we have some kind of agreement with Johnson County, Kansas and Wyandotte County, Kansas also?
Yeah, in terms of reciprocity, if you that's back on page 11. So again, it's that paragraph that's right underneath the chart. There is, the very last sentence says reciprocity is also extended to customers serviced by any public library that delivery service, that has delivery service and belongs to the Mid-America Library Alliance and are in a neighboring county. So that includes the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library, Johnson County Library, Cass County Library, Trails Regional Library on the west, on the east side.
Would it be helpful or more transparent if we amplified that with naming the libraries, or are there too many to name?
There's a lot to name. We could try to squeeze them in.
Is Leavenworth in that?
We do have reciprocity with Leavenworth, yeah, because they're in a county that borders us and they have delivery.
Well, you might consider a footnote that would just say that Johnson County and the larger ones are examples of the reciprocity we have. They would need to list every single library, but if you at least demonstrate that the largest libraries in the area are reciprocal with us also, that would be helpful. Thank you for that comment. Okay.
Just a question kind of related to this.
Yes.
And we have agreements by which if within the collections where we don't have a particular book, that there's arrangement to have access to other libraries throughout the country. Is that a material factor or just?
It's something that is very very interesting for the public. It's a base service for most libraries.
Yeah.
I mean, libraries sort of almost consider it the cost of doing business. Where Mid-Continent tends to be a little bit different is that we are a top 10 in the national network, which is called OCLC. We are actually a top 10 lender and a top 10 borrower in the nation, and the reason is because we value it. We strongly believe that if for whatever reason buying a particular book doesn't fit our community, you know, French poetry in German, it just is generally not going to get a lot of use in our collection. So for us, it would make sense to use the OCLC network to fulfill that request, and we strongly believe in it. There are other libraries that kind of dissuade their customers from doing it. So that's why we are a top 10 borrower.
Is that WorldCat?
WorldCat, yeah, OCLC WorldCat. But yeah, I mean, Ron, as a librarian, my feeling is it's kind of the cost of doing business. It's just, it's what libraries do.
I just good. I just remember Janet requested a text that we didn't have, and boom, was right here. I thought that was, saves the library the cost, of course, but then of course it made the shipping of the item. But that's good service, but I just didn't have a feel for the cost of it.
Well, how much does it cost?
Should be basically like UPS rates or something like that.
Well, yeah, mailing. I mean, the sender absorbs the sending cost, and the borrower absorbs the return costs, and so it ends up being sort of a wash. In that context.
Just another question occurred to me. Is the Mid-America Library Alliance, is it still headquartered in our property?
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's in the Stone Building at headquarters.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on through the. We've got things that we normally have, and this one includes. Well, I guess there were no changes in the branches, so that stays the same. Mid-Continent Public Library organizational chart. See there how we're organized to do the business of the library. The members of the Board of Trustees. There are quite a number of new members of the Board of Trustees, and we welcome them and look forward to working with them in person soon. I think we're probably going to be quite almost fully in person, are we not, from this point out, except that we will continue to offer the opportunity for people not to attend the meeting if they don't feel it's safe. if they just, if it's not convenient for them to be here, they can still do it remotely. Is that correct?
That would conform with the CDC guidance, so yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, then we have on page 16, we have the budget summary of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And I think we explored that some during the levy hearing. And any questions or comments on that? Page 16, it's pretty important. And then we have the other cut at, we have several cuts at explaining the budget, and some of them are related to the figures themselves and the aggregate of the figures, and some of them are related to specific areas in which we spend funds. And materials and lending are particularly important because, materials and lending are particularly important because we measure ourselves against other libraries. We try as much as possible throughout this budget to measure ourselves against other libraries, because that's one way we have of determining whether we have the efficiencies that we think we have. And we always look good in relation to that. One of the areas that we're ahead of other libraries is materials and lending. We have significant, not significant, but we have measurable more expenditures on materials than most other libraries our size. Isn't that correct, Steve?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay, and then on the next page, we have page 19, and I had a note there about underlining, highlighting the until substantial tax revenues are received in December, the library utilized this unassigned fund balance to fund its operations. So that's basically what we will use until the Attorney General finally certifies our levy. Is that correct?
Right.
And the Attorney General won't certify it unless we've met the requirements of the Rollback Act. Okay, we're now on page 20. Seems like there was a comment on 20.
Well, yeah, we had just discovered that we'd received the certificate for excellence in financial reporting. So everything that you had in the draft was for 2019.
Okay.
We actually have the 2020 and updated the language so that it says that for the 10th consecutive year as opposed to the 9th consecutive year, which is what the draft said. So.
And this is pretty significant. This is not just a casual thing that we get, that everybody gets. This organization contains thousands of members, and of those thousands of members, only a small percent, I think it was around 10 or 11 or 12% of people received this certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. So I think someone in our previous hearing mentioned that we should emphasize that. And so I'm doing so just by saying it again, that we're grateful that to our administration that we're able to enjoy this certificate, because it tells us that we're getting excellence in financial reporting, and financial reporting is one way that the board makes sure that the staff is doing its job, and we appreciate the fact that it's been done so well.
Need to thank Quan for this.
Yes, thank you, Juan.
Yeah, with that, with the Quan's department, when we have the external auditors come, it's wonderful beyond Christmas morning to get an unqualified opinion.
Yeah.
But then when you go to the back of the report and they have the management report, that's also where the CPAs feel like they got to justify their money by finding a little picky crap. It's clean, which is unheard of in the financial external accounting. This is certainly very, very.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it was really unusual for them to do nothing. I mean, usually, you're right, there's usually always one thing, that move this report to here as opposed to there. I mean, in some cases it is sort of picking, but, and in some cases it's been significant if we go back many years, but yes,
Yeah,
you
like
are correct.
in my earlier days when I, saw dark hair in the public accounting, it just wasn't done. And it's more than noteworthy. It's borderline miraculous, but it's real.
And
John,
go ahead, Steve.
I would suggest, and I agree with everything that everyone has said about kudos to the staff for their excellent work. It seems to me, and I appreciate our modesty, but what you said, John, about the small percentage of people get this award, and my guess is the very small percentage of that number that get it 10 years in a row, that we need to make sure our patrons know that their money is being well accounted for. And so it seems to me that I would suggest we still beef this up a little bit by saying that only X% of the 30,000 members get this award for 10 years in a row or something, to let people know that this is not just good, this is really good. And I think one of the reasons we do this report is, one, we're required by law, but two, to give people confidence that their money is being managed appropriately. And this kind of good housekeeping seal of approval says that, but it really says that for this to be done 10 years in a row. I've been on the board, not as long as you, John, but I've been on for a few years. And I remember when we got this the first 2 or 3 years, it was a big deal. And now we take it for granted. Well, it's something that's still pretty special. And so I think we ought to highlight it even more than we have in this revised document.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And Steve, I'll
Yeah,
leave it up to you all to think that through, and there are a number of ways that we could do that, but that's the suggestion of the board. Okay, let's move over to page 22. Revenues and expenditures. That's the general fund, a detailed statement of revenues and expenditures. Any further comment there? Page 24, 25. Expenditures in the area of the 3 areas of where we can best compare ourselves with other libraries are payroll and benefits, library materials, and library operations. So you see some information, it's expenditures there. And we have very few leased facilities, but we have a couple of leased facilities. One of those is at Red Bridge, where we took over an old bowling alley, I guess it was, and turned it into an absolutely wonderful library in cooperation with the redo of the entire Red Bridge Shopping Center there. That's been a real hit. But we do have a lease on that property. What's the term of that lease?
It's 2 10-year leases.
2 10-year leases.
And of course, renewable every year under provision of the law.
And then we have a leased facility in Green Valley, and a former dance studio. I think it is where
It was a gym.
we're leasing. Yeah.
When we took it over, it had previously been a kids' gym.
Yeah. And we're looking to cease that lease as soon as possible by a new. We have provision in our capital plan for constructing a new library in Green Valley, and we've reviewed several sites there. We don't have. We're working with the city, and we don't have a firm hold on what or where the new library would be, but our plan is to get a new library, and we have the funds that up to and that would cease the $250,000 year lease payments, or the $46,000 a year lease payments Green Valley facility. Okay, moving on through 26, 27. We had on 28, we had a little discussion of the reading rocket. I've got that circled. I don't actually remember the discussion we had. I think that the gist of it was that we're planning to replace the existing reading rocket because, you know, I guess it's I don't know, it's a 1953 Greyhound bus or something, and it's kind of outlived its days, and we need to replace that reading rocket, and that probably will happen this year. Steve, is that correct?
Right, I mean, what we were explaining in the meeting was that we did have, while we had plans to do that, some of that got sidetracked due to the pandemic. I mean, not just due to us, but due to our outside vendors and them not being able to work. So the replacement was a little slower than what we'd anticipated, but there's still the intention to do that.
Yeah, I guess you didn't think it was a great idea to be running a enclosed vehicle like that up into the neighborhoods and having people come in the middle of the pandemic. So that's probably a good decision, and but we'll have to bear an additional expense, I think, to improve that. That's a very popular service, and it almost would be good if we could consider a second a vehicle for that. That's another decision time. But hey, let's see, anything else on 30 and 31? And now we get into the charts. And I think the charts have been very helpful. We've been adding charts over the years. We started out with a budget that was all numbers, and we gradually improved it, I think, so that it's easier for people to see when we use the charts that we have. It's easier for us to see it too. So we've made use of those, and so the charts on those pages, the one particular is a comparison chart with MCPL and the national average and the regional average. And I think that's interesting to view that and assess our comparison to other large library operations. We're one of the 10 largest libraries in the United States. Is that true?
No, we're a little smaller than that. We're top of all libraries in North America. We're in the top 75. So that includes Canada and the United States.
Yeah.
For libraries serving, I actually can't remember what that number is right now. For libraries serving between 500,000 and 1 million people, that's our peer group. We're in the top quartile of that group.
Yeah. I can't help but make a comment. I'm very fond of the Kansas City Public Library. But I can't help but make the comment that most people, if you surveyed most people in the Kansas City area, they would think the biggest library in Kansas City was Kansas City Public Library, and that's not true. We're about 5 to 6 times bigger than the Kansas City Public Library in every way, in terms of circulation and number of branches and so on. So just an interesting, not that we're competitive in any way, but because we like to get along with Kansas City Public. We probably should even get along with them even more than we are now, but they're a wonderful library district. They just seem to get a lot more mention than we do in the press for some reason or another. Anyhow.
Well, and you're right, John, we're about 5 times larger on any measure, but with a lower levy rate. Our levy rate's 10 cents lower than Kansas City Public.
That's right.
If you add Johnson County and Kansas City Public together, we're still larger than those two libraries.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. There's a little competitiveness in me about that. I kind of like to straighten that out sometimes when people don't quite understand. Okay, I'm now on page 38, and we're payroll and benefits, the budget allocation by programs. Joyce Limburgo is here, and she's the chair of our personnel committee, which is one of the really important committees. In fact, it's a committee that spends more money than any other committee, right? Joyce?
Less than average.
Yeah, and happily so, because we have great people that run the library, and we're pleased to be able to try to pay them as well as we possibly can and to give them benefits that they deserve. We had quite a little conversation about benefits and in our last meeting, and we particularly talked about our affiliation with loggers, which is the
the local government employee retirement system.
Yeah, it's a retirement system in Missouri, which is well worth mentioning because it's one of the few public retirement systems in the country that are in excellent condition. We're not behind in any way. We have about 95% of the 95% of on-hand dollars, I guess is the way you would put it. Pre-funded dollars, and we are. I mean, it's a statewide institution, and it's been extremely well run, and therefore it's a very safe institution. We're not behind in any way. We're not in. None of the employee benefits are in danger of being lost at this time if we continue to fund it at the rate that we have. And we certainly intend to do that. Okay. And technology, we had quite a long discussion on technology, and I've got a couple of marks there, but I can't interpret. So I think there were some comments and discussion about that. We did have a cybersecurity discussion, and Brian was very helpful in reassuring us that is a thought, and that work is ongoing on that. And
Oh yeah, it's more than a thought.
Yeah,
We're doing stuff.
yeah, that work is ongoing to make sure that we're as safe as possible. Can't be 100% safe, can you, Brian?
We unplugged everything from the
Yeah,
internet.
get as close as we can. So
Yeah, if we unplug from the internet, we'd be 100% safe.
100% is a little unrealistic for almost any standard, but it's get as close as we can. So
So we're not a JBS meat company now.
no.
They're the latest victim of cybersecurity heist.
Yeah, but John, you're right. The notes, my notes are the same. The notes on that was, we talked a lot about cybersecurity and the cybersecurity insurance that we have and what the coverage was, which I think I shared all of that with you all, just so you can see that.
Yeah,
And so between our active measures and our insurance, we feel like we've significantly mitigated risk. And you know, like Brian says, nothing's perfect. I mean, that is the case, but we've done our level best to make sure that we are in the least risky situation that we can.
then one of the things that behooves all of us, we have computers that belong, or iPads that belong to the library that we use as members of the board, and it's incumbent upon us to be careful about how we use those. Just like it is every employee who uses any kind of connection to the library system, that we, don't click on things that we're suspicious of. If you're suspicious of it, don't click on it, and let Brian know about it right away.
Yep.
Okay. Let's look over on general funds building maintenance plan for fiscal year 21-22. We shouldn't have a lot of maintenance to do this year, right?
I mean, as you can see on page 45, it really does sort of list the projects, and
Yeah.
if you go through those, you can see those really are just standard maintenance, maintaining our buildings, and it's just sort of the standard things that you would do on any building. Those of you who have been on the board for a little while remember that sometimes in this fund you'll see big projects, and sometimes you'll see this total, instead of it being $600,000, 1.2 or something like that. And that's because Aaron's doing some sort of a big swap out of light fixtures or something along those lines. But yes, there's very little maintenance going on right now because of the capital program, because we're replacing everything. Right.
Any comments or questions? Looking over on page 46 and 47, the capital project fund. This is a separate fund from our operating. The main activity in that fund this year is completing the capital improvement program. And once again, thank you voters for approving by a decisive amount. 62.5%, I think, was the average across all of our counties of approving this major capital improvement program. And we're about 85% complete with that at this point, somewhere.
Yeah, depending on how you count. I mean, one change that I made is if you look on page 47, where it says status, as of June 2021, that last column, a whole bunch of completes. And what it used to say is either complete or pending, and now it says
Okay.
complete or in process. In process includes Blue Ridge, which that's where Michael and I went and got our shoes stuck because they pulled up all the carpet.
That was crazy.
Yeah, and so those branches that are in process where something's going on, I changed it to in process. And so then the only things that are left are the pendings, which these are ones where we're still, they haven't started drawing lines yet. And so what we've got there is Green Valley is pending, East Independence is pending, Riverside and Smithville. And Smithville is really just maintenance work. So there's 35 projects, and if you buy what I said about Smithville being just maintenance work, it really should be in process as well. There's only 3 projects left to do.
Okay, and in the course of all this, we've eliminated a significant number of basic improvements that we made frequently to some of our older libraries that perhaps weren't built quite as well as they should have been in the beginning. And so we had constant improvements with those. And I think almost virtually all of that's been corrected
Yes.
through this program. So we won't face those expenditures in the future. And some of the libraries are open. The one in I haven't been to the Withers Library in Liberty, but I'm told that it's going to be wonderful.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And I have been to the Colburn Road Library in Lee Summit, and I'm just blown away. I just can't believe it, how incredible that is. The only question I had there was one of the employees raised that, no, it was my wife that raised the question to one of the employees. And that is, who's going to dust all those birds that fly over the ceiling?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I
That is
wouldn't
a
have
good
thought of
question.
that, but Brenda's a dust person, and she thought of it right
My
away.
wife would have had the same question.
Yeah.
That's when you get out your leaf blower, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Maybe a leaf
That's
blower.
my idea of housekeeping, is get the leaf blower out, right?
But it's, I kid, but it's a beautiful library, absolutely beautiful library. It's completely open. It's just marvelous. It really is. And the people were so helpful too.
They're excited.
Yeah, they're very excited about it. They're anxious for you to ask them questions and for them to be able to answer your questions and so on. So it's really interesting to go there. There's the grand opening of that library will be on the 11th of June.
Week from tomorrow.
At what time?
8:30.
8:30. 8:30 in the morning?
Yeah, I mean,
Sadly.
right. Well, the goal was to do it outside so that all the speaking would be done at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
We would just open the doors to the public at our normal opening time.
Yeah, and I hope we invite all the channels that do such a good job of covering Kansas City Public Library.
I just saw a press release go out right before this meeting. So.
Yeah, okay, good.
One thing I did want to mention on page 49, if you do look at an old version, the previous version of the budget, you get about midway down there where underneath the bold line expenditures, it says would need historic house, would need collaboration room. In the previous version of the budget, it used to also say carpet replacement for Smithville. And now it no longer says that. And the decision was, instead of doing that as a specific line on a capital project, we're doing it out of work package 16 as part of the larger capital maintenance. So it's still being done. It's just being done as part of as part of work package 16.
Okay,
So
very good. Any questions? 49. We're over to debt service now. Debt service fund. This is the one we've already talked about quite a little bit, including during the levy hearing. And this is a chart on page 51, which shows the debt that we have incurred and will be paying off. And that the end year is 2038. And I think the first year that we're allowed to start paying off by the terms of our contract to borrow the money is in 2026.
correct.
So it'll be the year of 2026 when we'll be trying to make those decisions about how we're going to accelerate that payoff. So put that all on your calendar. Okay, special revenue fund, page 52, 53, grant and gift fund. We have an active fundraising program. We're trying to tap into funds that we know could be available for library purposes among foundations and others in the community. And so far, we're doing pretty darn well on that. I think, we've raised over $4 million in about the last 3 years of our 4 years of our active program here. Most of those have gone toward the renovation of the historic home, antebellum home in Woodney, at Woodney. And that's going to be the home of the storytelling function of the library once it's complete, and it'll be a very important part of library affairs going forward. We still have about 210 or $12,000 to raise there. We have one grant request out, and it looks good on that. And then we have 2 other calls to make on that one. And again, if anybody knows of somebody that wants to name a room, this is a rare opportunity.
How much?
25,000. We'd rather have 50, but if somebody steps forward with 25 and wants to name a room, why, we've got one ready for them to name. So anyone that's listening, please let us know, including anybody in the audience. Okay, and we've got some special scholarship funds in addition to our regular fundraising, and that is the James Letter Scholarship Fund, and the Genealogy Endowment Fund, and Story Center Endowment, so on. So, any questions about any of those funds? We have self-funded health insurance, and we did have some conversation about that in our previous meeting. I don't think we suggest any changes, although it's been an incredibly successful program. Some of us that were on the board at that time were a little concerned about doing it because we kind of cut our ties to major insurance in a way. We still have override insurance, so if it goes wildly beyond our estimates, why we're still covered by that. But it's just worked beautifully. I mean, we build up a cushion, and the cushion helps us through the times when we have more use of health insurance than we normally do, and that's worked extremely well. No guarantee that it'll continue to work well in the future, but so far it's been a real winner for our budget over the last 7, 8 years, 10 years.
10. I was going to tell you. I mean, that was
Wow,
we did that in August. We did this my first week on the job.
really?
The decision to do this, and there were many times that I thought that this is going to be my first big and my last big decision, based on how it performed. But it performed very, very well.
Yeah. Okay, then on page, unless there are questions about that, there's always questions from the board about that. I think properly so, but we need to monitor that carefully. Page 57 is the per capita ratios of peer group comparison in terms of circulation and so on. Number of borrowers and so on. It's an interesting chart to compare us with other libraries in our peer group. Miscellaneous statistical data, a footnote. Someone requested that there be a footnote on COVID.
Right, and you'll see that if you look at fiscal year 1920, there's a star on that, and if you follow that down the footnote, it says COVID-19 pandemic. Many library services halted, so that'll explain it. We'll probably do that again for 2020, 21, because we have the same situation. But as that moves up the table, people will understand why those numbers are smaller. So,
Yeah, and it's very difficult, I think, as Steve has pointed out a number of times, to use 2020 as a base year because it was such an odd year in terms of expenditures and in terms of everything. And so we try to compare 2021 to 2019 as opposed to 2020 because it's just an abomination year, I guess you'd call it. That was wonderfully gotten through thanks to our great employees who helped that to happen. Okay, and then on the miscellaneous statistical data, we have schedule of service locations. Okay, that's just pretty standard. I don't think there's been much change. There was no discussion about it. And I think that takes us to the end where we have, well, that's it. As far as I can tell, that's the end of the budget review. And so are there any final questions or comments? Because in a second or two, I will then ask for a vote by the committee to recommend approval of this budget as reviewed today to the full board, which will take place at our next meeting. Comments?
I have a question on page 21, as you were going through on general detailed statement of revenues and expenditures. I noticed that number 3260 property tax transfers and all those little things in parentheses. Can you explain that?
Steve, Juan,
Yeah, the transfer, if you also look at on page 50, we do not record 100% of the tax revenue under operating fund. We take out the 6.5 to pay off the debt. So that's being recorded under the debt service fund.
So the transfers, say it again, is going to the debt service?
Yes.
Okay.
so basically, we get our revenue, and then we take out our mortgage payment, if you will,
Right.
and
Your salaries and all your.
no, just the mortgage payment, just what we owe on our debt. And then what's left over is how we go about it. So then our operating ceiling, if you will, becomes that remainder, that 55 million. So that transfer is actually just it's making sure that we pay for our debt first.
Oh, I see. So you're just kind of taking that little chunk out and then putting it in to pay for your debt. So that's why it's in parentheses there.
Yeah, different pocket.
Okay.
And it goes to
okay.
a different account.
It's a subtraction. I was just
Yep.
curious. I'm looking there and I see that. I was just wondering what that was. Okay, thank you.
okay. Any other questions or comments about the budget?
Just want to let everybody know, I was taking notes. I'll get all of those notes incorporated. You'll see all of this incorporated in the draft that goes to the full board.
Yeah, so hopefully we won't have to have this major discussion at the board meeting, but the board's certainly welcome to ask lots of questions, and I'm sure they will. But this is a time when we give them our recommendation, so I would entertain a motion to recommend approval of this budget as reviewed to the board at our June meeting.
I so move. This is Steve.
Okay. It's been moved. Second?
Second.
Okay. Charlotte seconded. Any further questions or conversation? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, the motion is approved, and we'll make that recommendation to the board at our June meeting. Is there other business to come before the board? Juan or Steve, any additional business?
I don't know if anything, do you have anything else, Juan?
Any members know of any additional business required? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Is there such a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second to adjourn the meeting? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed?